Ah, that was loud. Gum goodness. The last of the gum goodness. This is number 4 in the pack. And this is about MVP talking about Chris Benoit on Chris Van Vliet's podcast. Now, I'm going to see if I can leave the link below where he talks about how he felt and what happened with Chris Benoit and what he did for him. But if you summarize it, and I've seen like 2 other videos before this, 1 or 2 other videos before this, when he talked about Chris Benoit. It's not like he talks about him often. He doesn't. Because he is the one that will not be named. The most hated wrestler by the standing of pro wrestling for what he did to his wife, second wife, and his son. But he does talk about him once in a while, about who really gave him the strongest influence. And in this situation, we was talking about Chris Benoit to Chris, and was talking about, how can I say this? When he talked to him while he was in the Indies, because it seemed that Chris, while he was working WWE, he talked to him on the Indies and talked to him about what he's doing, looking at his recordings, giving him critiques about his work in the ring. And even when he was engaged to his girlfriend, possibly, and was going to get married then divorced, at one point when he wasn't getting anywhere, even though he was putting on good matches, he actually, and this is MVP, he said openly, I'm wondering, am I just crap in the ring and I just think I'm good even though I'm not? And he talks to his girlfriend about this and said, am I really crap? And this is around the time when Chris asked him, hey, send me a recording of your work. Send me a DVD or a videotape, and I'll review it and I'll talk to you about it. And he talked to his girlfriend about it. And she said, if he says you're crap, what are you going to do? He says, if Chris Benoit says I'm crap, and this is before what happens with his wife and kid, if he says I'm crap, I'm quitting. I'm quitting wrestling, period. He finds out by Chris that Chris says, you're not crap. You're just green. He says, you sure? He says, yeah. It's obvious you're not crap. You're really good. You're just green. You just need more time to develop. And that's what happened. Chris is one of the first people that really had an interest in him. One of the people instrumental, not the person, but one of the people instrumental in not just getting him into WWE, probably mentioning it to somebody, but also when he got over as U.S. champ, particularly, and I do remember the wrestling match between Chris and MVP, him winning it. I was actually very happy he won it. I know not everyone liked MVP at the time. There was people, at least 1 or 2 people I knew that did watch wrestling that did not like him. I thought, he just needs more time. He's still new in the business, which he was. But he did show a lot of good work. Now, I never got a chance to see him working with Matt Hardy and the spot that he did. But I do know that he did a very good job throughout most of his run. And then when he went to TNA, which I didn't see the, what was it? The Beatdown Clan, the first one. I didn't see it. The second version, I did see. And that was the first version back in 2010 or something, I think. I think the first version, 2010, when I was watching TNA before it became Impact, if that was the Beatdown Clan then, that's not the second one, but the first. And I did see it. And he did great there, too. Not only wrestling, but being the manager of it. And then, let's be honest, even though no one said the transition to manager, he is a damn great manager. And what he said during that time when he was talking with Chris Van Vliet, saying that when he did his promo and Paul Heyman was there and everyone clapped at him for how great he did his promo, and someone said to Paul, he said, this guy is really good in promo. He said, yeah, he is. And I think someone asked Paul if he's worried. He says, why would I be worried about competition? He's my replacement. That's what MVP said. And out of respect for Paul, he said he was heavily instrumental. And he said openly, the first and greatest manager in history is the Weasel. No one could ever touch the Weasel. Nobody. when you look at those segments when he was with Mean Gene Okerlund, I loved them. Because there was a point during the time, well before Monday Night, well before Monday Night Raw, when you saw those segments between him and Mean Gene Okerlund. It is so wonderful how their interaction was. I loved those things. I was upset when they didn't do them anymore. But when you see Paul Heyman, who is second, I truly believe Paul Heyman is the first. The Weasel's the second. But when you see both of them, and you know how great of a talker both of them are, you can easily put an MVP in there. And I'm like, three of the greatest speakers there is. And seeing this segment, him talking about Chris Benoit, that he was instrumental in helping him to work on his style, to work on not his promos, but to be willing to give him the opportunity to become U.S. champion and let him drop that title to him. Because he, literally as MVP said it, he pushed for MVP to get his U.S. title, Chris Benoit's title at the time. And it makes me feel good to know that when Chris wasn't screwed up, he cared about other people. Now, he does briefly talk about what happened and what he did. And he was not happy. He was so upset and so betrayed that Chris did what he did to his son and his wife. He said he even played with his son. He knew his son. He played with him. He went to his home. But when they found out about the concussions, the constant concussions he had, and he had the mind of a 70-year-old man, the brain, he said he understood why it happened. He didn't forgive him for what he did. In the sense that he didn't believe that was Chris that did those things. That was the brain damage. The man that he knew, that helped him when he was in the independents, who was willing to drop the title to him at a WrestleMania, that he was the one who helped him to get better in practice and training. That was his friend. The one who had the brain damage was not. And that was stark. He's not saying he forgave what Chris did. He just understood it. And I felt that was the best way to say it. Like for myself. I may actually go over 8 minutes with this, guys. So, sorry. This will be a longer gump goodness than normal. I got to say this for myself. When I first started my channel, one of the first videos was Chris Benoit and what he did. I had to do 2 videos, two of them. You can probably still find them. They're on the channel. You'll have to go to the oldest videos. They'll probably be one of the first videos or the first 2 videos there. I don't remember. But I still agree with myself back then. And that's over 12 years now. Well, no. 13 years. I'm sorry. I forgot this year. 13 years. I've been doing YouTube videos. When you see the situation, that wasn't Chris Benoit. That was total, complete brain damage from constant concussions. Even MVP said it himself when they were in the ring together and they were doing their work. At one point, when you look, he said he looked at Chris, he had this blank stare and he said, "What are we doing?" And he said, "My battery died." And he said, literally, he looked at Chris and he had this blank stare and Chris said, "What are we doing? Where are we? What are we doing?" He said, "You all right?" And he said himself, MVP said, "I thought he was joking with me, ribbing me." No, he literally didn't remember what was going on. He forgot while they were in the ring, doing their work, hitting his head on the mat, maybe doing a headbutt from the top turnbuckle, and he just blanks out. He doesn't remember a damn thing. And that's when MVP, after it came out about the brain injury that Chris Benoit had. Let's make it very clear, for me personally, maybe I might turn this into a Gump report instead of a Gump goodness video, I think, because it's longer than this. Okay. I'm sorry, this is the process of thinking while you're making the video. Yeah, you're welcome. But essentially, for me, when I made my original videos 13 years ago, I can separate, and I've said this over the years, I can separate the wrestler Chris Benoit from the person Chris Benoit. This is not about putting them together. There's a total stark difference. When you look at the wrestler Chris Benoit, he was the greatest of all time. If he had not died the way he did, he would be one of the greatest of all time, along with Eddie Guerrero. He would be in the Hall of Fame right now, but it's not allowed because of what he's done. Now, when you look at Chris Benoit, the person, there are two people. One before the brain damage began, and one that was after. Let's make that clear. We are not condoning what happened, and I'm not trying to justify anything, but you can see there was a difference, and MVP just admitted it. Before the brain damage started happening, he was willing to help him at anything. He was willing to help anybody else. But when the brain damage started, I'm sure more than a few people saw it. We're not taking anything away from what was happening. It was disgusting what he did. Disgusting. But let's be honest. There is a difference between the guy before the damage and afterward. And if you combine the two together, what do you have? You got a wrestler, a pro wrestler. When he was wrestling, he was the greatest of all time. In many people's minds, before what he did. And then you see the guy who wanted to do pro wrestling, and it destroyed him. It's as simple as that. It destroyed him. He didn't consciously become a nut and to be violent and want to kill. He didn't. He had kids from another marriage. If that was true, he would have killed his other wife and his other sons, because he has other kids. Actually, from what I understand, one of Chris's oldest sons, I think he had 2 kids. Before his current marriage before he did what he did, I think he had 2 sons. And one of them is now becoming a pro wrestler himself. So, if he was that evil, he would have killed them too. He's not. So we know this. So just in case anybody says, dude, why are you trying to justify what he did? I'm not. It was disgusting what he did. That person should have been thrown in jail, and that would have been the end of it. Let him just rot in jail for the rest of his fucking life. Okay? What he did, if he had not taken his own life, I would have liked to see him put in jail for the rest of his life, to never come out, and to have suffering for the rest of his life. Like to have the recordings of his wife and his kids' faces flashed in front of him, in front of a TV screen for the rest of his life. And everyone screaming at him at the top of their lungs inside his jail cell, where he would never know peace. Period. If he was an evil bastard that he was. But we're talking about a guy who took his life, who had brain damage. No one's saying anything about justifying it. No, that's what he had. He was evil. There ain't no way to get around it. He was an evil man. Period. But this is what we got in a pro wrestler. And this just means, I hope you enjoy this Gump Report. I'm changing from Gump Goodness to Gump Report because it's way longer than I wanted. You never know what you're going to get in a Gump Report, or Gump Goodness for that matter. If I go over to 8 minutes, it's going to be a Gump Report. Most of the time. It still could be a Gump Goodness, but just me. Peace.